My name is Trinity Harrington and I am 29 years old. The day I was wheeled into the hospital on that freezing stretcher was the day my life turned onto a road I could never come back from. The fall at my brother Logan's birthday party stole my legs from me, turning me from an independent woman into a patient who had to listen as the doctor whispered two words: spinal injury. But what haunted me most wasn't the pain, it was my parents' faces as they stood there, casually telling me, "Get up, stop making a scene," while my brother smirked. "Nice performance, little sis. Has your pain ever been denied so cruelly by the very people you loved most?" Share your thoughts in the comments, hit like and subscribe to the channel to follow me as I uncover the truth behind that fateful fall. I was born and raised in a house that made anyone passing by stop and stare. The front lawn was neatly trimmed, geraniums hung across the porch, and the windows always gleamed like mirrors. In the Connecticut suburbs, the Harrington home was considered the model. A successful father, a graceful mother, an outstanding son, and a dutiful daughter. People looked at us and thought we were lucky. But behind that white-painted door were things no outsider could ever imagine. My father, Richard, was a successful accountant, tall, sharp, always precise in speech. He obsessed over image and reputation. To him, emotions were weakness, excuses for the incompetent. Since I was little, the words he always threw at me were, "Trinity, toughen up. Don't embarrass people." His voice was firm, blunt, like a dull blade sawing back and forth, carving invisible scars in me that never healed. My mother, Diane, was different. Outwardly, she seemed gentler, softer than my father. But her gentleness was often just a way to keep the peace, to make sure the house looked perfect to others. Diane feared nothing more than losing face. She could cook a flawless dinner table, smile brightly when neighbors dropped by, but when I cried from pain, she would pull me aside and whisper, "Don't make a fuss, sweetheart. People are watching." Her silence and fear often hurt more than my father's harsh words. I slowly learned that in this house, truth didn't matter as much as appearances. And then there was Logan, my brother 3 years older. To Richard and Diane, he was the golden child. Logan was spoiled, protected, polished so nothing could ever tarnish his image. From childhood, he knew how to exploit his privilege to torment me. Every cruel prank of his was brushed off by our parents as clever mischief. And me, the small sister, I was always the scapegoat. I still remember being 7. That day I was riding my new blue bike in the yard. Logan walked beside me, grinning, mischief glinting in his eyes. Suddenly he shoved the handlebars hard. I wobbled, crashed onto the curb, my wrist throbbing so badly I couldn't lift it. I ran home crying for help. But Logan had already propped the bike neatly, pretending to pant as he said, "She fell by herself. She's always clumsy." Father glanced at me, no concern, just a frown. "You need to be more careful, Trinity. You embarrass us." Mother sighed, "Let's hope the hospital bill isn't too expensive." No one saw the satisfied smirk still lingering on Logan's lips. When I was 12, a sudden summer storm hit. I was reading when Logan called me down to the basement, saying he had something special to show me. Trusting him, I tiptoed downstairs. The moment my feet touched the cold floor, the door slammed shut, the lock clicked. I screamed, pounded the door until my hands burned, the roar of rain on the roof mixing with his gleeful laughter. "Don't worry, the monster down there will love you." I curled up shivering in the dark for hours. When Richard finally opened the door, I burst out sobbing, accusing Logan. But Father only frowned. "Stop making things up. What brother would do that to his sister?" Diane cut in quickly, "Enough, Trinity. You always imagine things." Once again I was branded as the attention-seeking liar. At 16 I spent weeks preparing my first solar energy project. The night before it was due, I found the entire model dismantled, pieces scattered across the floor. Logan leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, voice calm. "Maybe you should start earlier next time, Trinity. Don't wait until the last minute and then blame others." I swallowed hard, bitterness burning through my chest. The years rolled on, the pattern repeated. Logan grew more cunning at hiding his cruelty, and I grew used to my voice holding no weight. That perfect house in Connecticut taught me one thing: silence was the price of survival. But that price was too high. Every time I was denied, a part of me died. Leaving the Harrington home was the hardest, but the only choice if I wanted to breathe. I knew that if I stayed, I would forever be the weak daughter, the one who carried all the blame to keep the family portrait flawless. So as soon as I was of age, I applied to a university in another state, worked part-time jobs to pay tuition and living expenses. Every paycheck from waiting tables, every late shift in the library was proof of my determination to escape the family spiral. Those years were far from easy. On some winter mornings, I had to walk nearly a mile and a half through snow just to make it to class. On some nights, I lay in a creaky dorm bed, tears soaking the pillow from exhaustion so deep I didn't want to open my eyes the next day. But in those moments, I would hear Richard's cold voice echo in my head. Trinity, toughen up. Don't embarrass people. I hated him, but it was because of him that I became determined to prove I wasn't weak. After graduation, I chose a path no one expected: educational technology. To Richard and Diane, it was a second-rate career. Not as prestigious as accounting like father, not as glamorous as the real estate deals Logan bragged about. They didn't know that in this field I found true purpose, bringing technology to change how children learn. I started small at an elementary school, designing interactive lessons, testing new software. To colleagues and students, I was a creative teacher. But deeper down, I had a journey even my parents never knew. 3 years ago, 2 partners and I launched a small project using artificial intelligence in education. At first, our only goal was to help underprivileged children access knowledge through a free app. But gradually, investors took notice. We raised a first round, then another, expanding step by step. Today, the company is valued at more than $8 million, a number that would leave Richard speechless if he knew. I kept that secret guarded, knowing if my family found out, they'd try to claim it, twist it into their victory instead of my effort. In their eyes, I was still just a mediocre elementary teacher, the weak, clumsy daughter. And I let them believe that. Their contempt was the perfect armor shielding what I was building. My life slowly settled. I had a small apartment in Boston, a close group of friends, and a job that made me proud to wake up each morning. Sometimes Diane would call, her voice sweet but laced with command. Come visit home, it's been so long. Logan's asking about you. I always excused myself with work, with busyness. Because every visit meant facing their scrutinizing eyes, the endless comparisons. But that summer I had no way to escape. Diane called, and this time her voice was not pleading but filled with pressure. Trinity, you must come to Logan's birthday party. Your father has prepared so much, all the relatives and friends will be there. If you don't show up, people will talk. I don't want our family to lose face. I knew very well no one actually cared whether I was there or not. Logan surely wouldn't even notice. But to Diane, my presence was nothing more than a detail in the perfect picture she desperately tried to maintain. I have a lot of work. You know I'm busy. On the other end, silence lingered for a moment before her voice dropped lower, carrying a trace of threat. I don't want your father to be disappointed again, Trinity. People will ask. And you don't want to become the subject of gossip, do you? My chest tightened. That old cycle wrapped around me again. Guilt, duty, and the fear of being branded the ungrateful daughter. I didn't want to go, but I couldn't find a strong enough reason to refuse. In the end, I sighed. All right. I'll come. The moment I hung up, I knew I had stepped into a familiar trap. Years of therapy had taught me that sometimes you shouldn't go back to the place that once broke you. But I had also learned something else. This time I was different. I was no longer the 12-year-old locked in the basement, nor the teenage girl crying beside a ruined science project. I was a woman holding $1 million project in my hands, someone able to stand firm on her own. Even if Richard, Diane, or Logan didn't know it, I knew. And that truth was the quiet fire burning inside me, lighting every step I was about to take as I returned to the old house. When I drove back to the family home, my heart pounded, both familiar and strange. The Harrington estate glowed with bright lights, the backyard echoing with music and laughter. From the gate, I saw rows of luxury cars, Mercedes, Porsche, all belonging to Logan's friends. Everything my parents had ever craved, status, the perfect image, was on display here at what they called a memorable birthday for the Golden Son. My mother, Diane, opened the door with a stiff smile. She glanced at my outfit, a simple navy dress and low heels, then gave a slight nod as if to say at least this time I wasn't embarrassing. She kissed my cheek lightly. You're here. Go to the backyard, Logan is waiting. Everyone is already there. As I stepped into the backyard, the sight stunned me. The pool glittered with lights, the long table was filled with barbecue and wine, groups of young people clustered together laughing loudly. My father, Richard, stood near the grill, his face beaming with pride as if this party were the greatest achievement of his life. And Logan, the center of it all, sat on a lounge chair, beer in hand, surrounded by friends. When he saw me, he stood up, arms spread wider than necessary. Oh, at last the little sister decided to show up. I thought you'd be busy teaching elementary kids how to sound out words and add numbers. The group burst out laughing, including Tyler, Logan's childhood friend who had often joined in tormenting me. Tyler raised his beer can at me, his eyes sparkling with mockery. Remember the time you believed the neighbor's dog had rabies? God, she was so scared she didn't step outside for a whole week. Laughter roared. My spine went cold. Childhood memories flooded back. The slamming basement door, the shattered science model, my parents' dismissive stares, all crashing down in a single moment. I took a deep breath, reminding myself, stay calm. Don't let them win. I tried to slip past them to grab a glass of water inside. But Logan blocked my path, the stench of beer and cheap cologne wafting from his breath. He shoved a glass of liquor toward me, his tone both falsely friendly and forceful. Come on, drink. It's your brother's birthday. Don't be the odd one out. I shook my head, keeping my voice steady. I don't drink, Logan. I still have to drive home. He squinted, that sinister smile spreading. Still playing the saint, huh? Fine, if you won't drink then. He paused, voice dropping low, full of challenge. Let's try something else. Remember our childhood? You never once had the guts to face my challenges. Tyler chimed in, voice gleeful. Oh man, this is like high school. This is going to be good. I looked around, seeing curious eyes turn toward me. A few guests whispered, chuckling, waiting for my reaction. The entire atmosphere of the party seemed to close in on me, as if I were the star of some cruel play they were watching. I tried to keep my voice calm, not wanting to create a bigger scene. I'm not interested in your games. I came to wish you a happy birthday. But Logan wasn't about to let me go. He stepped closer, his eyes sharp, pressing down on me. Not interested? Or still scared like when you were little? That's right, our Trinity, always trembling, always crying for help. Remember when she was locked in the basement? She screamed like it was haunted. Too bad no one believed her. Another burst of laughter from his friends. My heart raced, my throat tightened. I turned and caught Richard's eyes across the yard. He glanced at me, made no move to intervene, and went back to tending the grill. Diane chatted with a group of women, but I knew she was listening. I turned back and looked directly at Logan, refusing to flinch for the first time. You know what, the saddest part is I'm not even surprised anymore. Because for all these years, your games have had only one script. Humiliate me while our parents look the other way. The air fell silent for a few seconds. Logan froze, then laughed loudly, slapping Tyler's shoulder. Hear that? Our weak little sister dares to talk back. Maybe some liquor will make her braver. He shoved the glass closer to my lips. I turned my head, stepped back, trying to keep my composure. But his eyes gleamed dangerously like the old days. Whenever he felt challenged, he wouldn't stop until I broke. Fine, don't drink, Logan said, voice casual but eyes cunning. But this party needs some entertainment. And you're the best gift I can give my friends. I knew he was plotting something new, something I couldn't yet imagine, but it would go far beyond the humiliations of childhood. I turned to leave, to escape the crowd's jeering stares, when Logan called after me, his tone half mocking, half challenging. Hey, aren't you going to congratulate your brother? At least walk across this new wooden deck. Dad spent a fortune making it look nice. All eyes locked on me. A few whistles pierced the air. I forced myself to stay calm, stepping onto the deck by the pool. The wood shone, the smell of fresh polish sharpened my nose, making me pause. But with so many watching, I refused to stop, refused to hand Logan more fuel. The moment my foot hit the middle, my body slipped. The surface was slick as if greased. I slid, arms flailing for balance, but everything happened too fast. A sickening crack rang out as my back slammed against the concrete edge of the pool. Agonizing pain shot through me like a blade slicing down my spine. I lay frozen, staring up at the dark sky flickering with party lights. In an instant, I realized the most terrifying truth. My legs were gone. I couldn't feel them. I tried to move, but there was nothing. My chest tightened, terror surging through every vein. Help me. I can't move my legs. My voice rasped weakly through the music. A circle formed around me. Logan stepped forward, peering down with amusement before sneering. Not bad, Trinity. This act looks better than your earlier ones. Even your fall has style. I strained my eyes toward my father. Richard left the grill, frowned, and barked. What are you doing? Get up. Stop disgracing this family in front of everyone. Tears streamed down my temples. I can't get up. I can't feel my legs. I need a hospital. Diane moved closer, leaned down to whisper through tight lips, her eyes darting around to be sure the guests couldn't hear. Be quiet, Trinity. Everyone's watching. Don't cause more trouble. Instead of reaching to help her daughter, Diane smoothed her dress, adjusting her posture, as if her dignity mattered more than my broken body. I reached out with trembling hands, grabbing Logan's arm, pleading desperately, please. Call 911 for me. He shook me off, voice dripping with glee. Relax. You slipped. A little wood polish, nothing serious. You should know how to stand on your own. Stop being so weak. Whispers rippled through the crowd. A few guests exchanged uneasy glances. But no one stepped in. They took their cues from the hosts, from Logan, and chose to stay out. The stabbing pain in my spine made it hard to breathe. I kept repeating like a forsaken child. I can't feel anything. I can't move. Richard folded his arms, shaking his head. You never fail to disappoint us. Those words cut through me like a blade to the chest. My body was paralyzed, but my heart shattered. Amid the laughter and contempt of the very people who were supposed to protect me, I looked around, the blinding lights, the chaotic music, my parents' indifferent faces, Logan's cruel smile. All of it blended into a living nightmare. In that moment, I understood that this fall wasn't just an accident. It was the culmination of years of being trampled on, denied, turned into a joke within my own family. And this time, the consequences could not be erased. I lay there, sweat breaking out across my forehead despite the cool night air. The music still thumped. Laughter still rang from clusters of guests who hadn't realized what was really happening. But to me, those sounds felt distant, muffled, like echoes from another world. I heard only my own heartbeat racing, merging with the strangled cry in my throat. I can't feel my legs. Someone help me. The crowd around me looked on with uneasy eyes. Logan crossed his arms, staring down at me with a smirk, muttering, "Born actress." Then a woman's voice rang out, sharp and commanding, cutting through the air. "Please step aside. I'm an emergency nurse. She needs immediate evaluation." The people parted in surprise. A middle-aged woman with her hair tied back and a firm expression stepped forward. She knelt beside me, her hands cold but steady as she checked my pulse. Her gaze softened as she looked at me. "My name is Rachel Morgan. I work in the ER. Trinity, can you hear me?" I nodded, tears spilling down because finally someone believed me. Rachel spoke quickly, clearly. "You need to stay still. I suspect a spinal injury. No one is to move her. I'll call 911 right now." "No need." Diane rushed in, her voice frantic but still trying to look composed for the remaining guests. "She's exaggerating. She's fine. No need for an ambulance. It will ruin the party." Rachel lifted her head, her eyes so sharp that even Diane stepped back. "Do you understand she cannot move her legs? This is an emergency. Any delay could cause permanent damage." Richard came forward, his face flushed with anger. "You don't have the right to give orders in my house. This girl has always staged scenes for attention." Rachel didn't flinch. She pulled out her phone and dialed. "This is urgent." A woman fell, struck her back on the pool edge, suspected spinal injury, loss of sensation in both legs. The address is, "Please dispatch an ambulance immediately." As she spoke, I caught Logan's eyes. His mocking grin had vanished, replaced by unease. He wiped sweat from his brow and backed away. One of his friends whispered, "What's wrong with the deck? Why is it so slippery?" Rachel bent down, touched the surface with her fingers. She frowned, sniffed her hand, then spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "This isn't water. It's wood polish. Someone deliberately spread it here." The air froze. All eyes turned to Logan. He stammered, his voice trembling. It was just a prank. I thought she'd slip a little and fall into the pool. I didn't think." "A prank." Rachel cut in, her voice stern. "Do you realize what the consequences of this prank are? She could be paralyzed for life." The few remaining guests whispered among themselves. Some, not wanting to be involved, quietly gathered their things and left. The once boisterous party shattered, exposing panic and pretense. I tried to speak, but my throat was locked. All I could do was clutch Rachel's hand like a lifeline. She leaned down. "Don't worry. I won't let them abandon you again." Minutes later, the sound of sirens echoed from afar. Red and blue lights flickered through the fence, illuminating the garden like a stage collapsing. 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher and stabilizing gear. Rachel gave a quick report, stressing the discovery of wood polish. A young paramedic, after a brief check, frowned and murmured to his colleague, "We need to notify the police. This isn't a simple accident." Those words sliced through Richard and Diane's feigned composure. My father roared, "You will not call the police. This is a minor incident. I'll take responsibility." "Mr. Richard, you cannot obstruct emergency procedures. This is your daughter's life, not your family's image." In that moment, I saw the Harrington family's perfect mask begin to crack. The same people who once idolized Logan now looked at him differently, with contempt and fear. When the police arrived, boots pounded against the deck as they secured the pool area. An officer asked sharply, "Who spread the polish on this deck?" Again, all eyes turned to Logan. He lowered his head, stammering, "I didn't think it would be this serious." Several guests left immediately, unwilling to be caught up in it. The lively party dissolved into chaos. Suitcases dragged, taxis called, guests rushing out. The pool still glowed, but the laughter was gone, replaced by sirens and the clipped orders of police. The sirens still rang in my ears when the hospital doors closed behind me. I was rushed straight into the ER, the bright white lights blurring everything. Each time the nurses moved my body to stabilize it, searing pain shot through my back, sharp enough to shatter my breath. I bit my lip, fighting the urge to scream because part of me still feared Richard's scolding. "Don't make a fuss, don't draw attention." A calm-eyed, middle-aged doctor approached. She introduced herself as Dr. Martinez, a neurologist. Her voice was steady and reassuring, like a rope keeping me from slipping into panic. "Trinity will take you for an MRI immediately. I need to know how badly your spine is injured. Stay still, don't try to move." Only one question echoed in my mind: will I ever walk again? The scans came back quickly. Martinez pulled up a chair beside my bed, her voice dropping low. "You have fractures in 2 lumbar vertebrae. We performed emergency surgery, removed the fragments pressing on the spinal cord, and stabilized it with metal rods. The good news is this is an incomplete spinal cord injury. The bad news is there's a risk of partial or long-term paralysis. We'll need time to assess recovery." Her words fell like a boulder on my chest. I forced myself to swallow, asking through trembling lips, "So, I might be paralyzed?" "It's possible. But there is also a chance of improvement with proper physical therapy. We will be with you through it." While I was still reeling, the police entered. 2 female officers. One introduced herself as Detective Sullivan, the other as Officer Chin. They sat beside my bed, professional yet compassionate. "We need you to recount everything. We gathered preliminary statements at the scene, but you are the key witness." I told it from the beginning. How Logan pushed me onto the deck, how I slipped, the pain shooting down my legs, then Richard and Diane's reactions. My voice cracked as I recalled every indifferent look, every scolding denial. Officer Chin wrote carefully, pausing to confirm. "So after you reported no feeling in your legs, no one in your family called 911? "Only when Nurse Rachel intervened. They told me not to cause a scene, that I was ruining Logan's party. If not for Rachel, I might have died there." Detective Sullivan exchanged a glance with her partner, then continued. "We arrested Logan Harrington last night, charged with reckless endangerment causing serious injury. Your parents are also under investigation for delaying medical aid. But there's another detail you need to know." My eyes widened, heart pounding. "What is it?" She pulled out a thin file. "When we searched the property, we discovered the security camera system was still active. Every angle of the yard, especially the pool area, had footage. However, when our tech team checked the data, several files had been deleted that very night." I closed my eyes, picturing Richard frantically typing at the keyboard while I lay on the stretcher, writhing in pain, waiting for the ambulance. Bitterness flooded me. He would erase evidence to protect his pride rather than save his daughter. Detective Sullivan went on. Even though Richard Harrington tried to delete them, we recovered the files. And fortunately, the entire incident was restored. The way you fell, Logan pouring the polish, your family's reaction. This evidence will add serious weight to the charges against both Logan and your parents. The physical pain was unbearable enough, but the feeling of ultimate betrayal was what truly suffocated me. At some point, I heard myself whispering in broken breaths, "They're my family, and yet they treated me like this." Officer Chin gently placed a hand on the bed rail. "We understand. But this time nothing will be hidden. Justice will speak." I was transferred to a rehabilitation center, where every morning began with the sound of therapists' shoes on wooden floors and the smell of antiseptics drifting down the halls. There I met Tara, a woman in her 30s injured in a car accident 2 years earlier. She walked with crutches, each step slow but filled with determination. Tara smiled often, her voice warm. "See? At first I couldn't even lift my foot. Every step felt like a battle. But day by day, trying again and again, eventually the body listens." My sessions often ended in tears. Some days I sat between the parallel bars, struggling to lift my foot a few millimeters, sweat soaking my back. I collapsed, screaming in despair. "Why me? Why?" Tara pulled up a chair, placed her warm hand on my shoulder. I asked the same thing once. But I realized the answer never comes. Instead, there's a more important question. What will I do now to keep living? Her words became a compass, helping me rise after moments I thought I couldn't go on. Besides Tara, support came from unexpected places. My colleagues at the school where I once taught organized an online fundraiser. I saw pictures of former students holding a sign scribbled with crooked letters. "Stay strong, Miss Trinity." Friends visited, bringing flowers, books, and a kind of genuine presence I had never felt from my own blood relatives. One afternoon, while I was stretching my legs with resistance bands, my phone buzzed. A message from one of my company's co-founders. "Big news. The funding round is a success. We've been officially valued at $8 million. And you're the largest shareholder." The secret I had hidden for 3 years could no longer stay hidden. The next day, the news spread everywhere. Teacher harmed by brother at family party. Turns out to be the young CEO behind a multi-million-dollar AI education startup. Photos of me in a hospital gown, sitting in a wheelchair, appeared alongside the headline. At first I panicked. I didn't want my private pain displayed publicly. But then I read the comments. "She's so resilient. An example of courage. Who knew behind tragedy was such a talented woman?" The public began to see me as a symbol of endurance. Journalists reached out for interviews. Investors sent flowers to the hospital. Even Dear Martinez held my hand, smiling. "Trinity, sometimes the harshest trials open paths no one expects. You're not only fighting for yourself but for so many watching." That night, Tara pulled up a chair by my bed, holding a newspaper. "See? They're calling you the unyielding woman. I believe one day you'll not only walk again but lead thousands of students with your mind and determination." I laughed. My first real laugh since the fall. Through tears and laughter, I realized, no matter what happened to my legs, I could still stand strong, with my mind, my faith, and with truth finally recognized. The first trial took place on a chilly autumn morning, the Connecticut sky gray like a heavy curtain over the city. I sat in my wheelchair, hands clasped so tight they turned white. Ahead of me, Logan was escorted in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his once polished hair now messy, his face gaunt. He avoided my eyes, darting around like a trapped animal. The judge read the charge. Reckless endangerment resulting in serious bodily injury. Each word echoed in the solemn chamber, every strike of the gavel like nails sealing my brother's fate. The prosecutor played the restored footage. Logan pouring polish onto the deck, then crossing his arms, smirking as I slipped. His defense lawyer tried. "Your Honor, my client only meant to tease his sister, not to cause serious harm." But the images, the witnesses, the cold indifference of Richard and Diane after my fall, all were undeniable. Finally, the judge pronounced sentence. 6 years in prison for Logan. The final gavel struck, Logan trembled, Diane broke down sobbing, and Richard clenched his jaw, silent and dark-faced. Tears rolled down my cheeks, not from grief but because for the first time truth was not denied. Justice didn't stop there. My parents faced it too. Diane and Richard were charged with criminal negligence, along with tampering with security footage to conceal the truth. In court, the prosecutor declared, "There is no excuse for parents choosing pride over their daughter's life." They were sentenced to 3 years of probation and heavy financial penalties. Richard bowed his head. For the first time I saw him defeated. Diane clung to his hand, trembling, eyes empty, as if the world she built had collapsed before her eyes. My lawyer pursued a civil case in parallel. He laid out the lifelong costs of spinal cord injury, millions of dollars for surgeries, rehab, medical equipment, and long-term care. Sitting in court hearing those numbers, I felt both bitterness and determination. The money would never repay what was lost, but it would give me the means to live. The court ruled in my favor. I was awarded over $3 million, including a portion drawn from Harrington family assets. The grand suburban house, once a fortress of pretense, was ordered to be sold at auction. With that money, I could secure my treatment and future, never again begging for pity. But the investigation uncovered more. While reviewing finances for damages, authorities discovered Richard and Logan's involvement in fraud, using fake records to siphon funds from an investment account Richard managed. Suspicious transactions surfaced, and Logan's name appeared in internal emails. The news spread quickly. A reporter outside the courthouse said straight into the camera, "The Harrington family, once a model household in Connecticut, now faces not only a domestic abuse case but also a major financial scandal." Hearing this in my hospital room, I felt no satisfaction, only deep sorrow. My family, everything they had fought to preserve, now exposed as rotten to the core. And they had destroyed it themselves. I remembered Richard leaving the courtroom, his face ashen, his once imposing presence gone. Diane followed, her coat trembling in the wind, her voice breaking as she said, "We've lost everything, Richard." But he said nothing, walking like a shadow. I sat in my wheelchair, emotions tangled, pain, relief, and nameless regret. They had chosen false honor over their daughter. And now that honor was nothing but scraps in the hands of justice. 2 years after that fateful trial, I stood in a vast hall in New Haven, bright LED screens lighting the space. The hum of hundreds awaiting the launch of my startup's new product made my heart race, not from fear but from emotion. I leaned on shining metal crutches, step by step onto the stage. Applause thundered, not from pity but because they saw strength in me. In the front row, Rachel sat, her eyes glowing with pride. Tara was there too, with her own crutches, nodding encouragement. Beside them were the colleagues who had built the company with me, the people I now called family. I paused at center stage, inhaled deeply. My hand trembled, but when I saw the bright faces of those I loved, the shaking stopped. My voice carried through the hall. 2 years ago, I left a birthday party on a stretcher, unsure if I would ever walk again. I thought every door was closed. But today I stand here, not to retell pain but to prove that from ruins we can build something new and better. Applause erupted again, but I raised my hand for silence, continuing, "I lost the ability to walk as before. But I did not lose the strength to move forward. And most importantly, this time I am not alone." I looked toward Tara, our eyes meeting in silent understanding. After the event, she leaned in with a grin. "See? The first day you couldn't lift your foot. Now you stand before hundreds. You've already won." I squeezed her hand. "Without you, I might have broken long ago." Rachel stepped up, resting a hand on my shoulder, her voice warm. "Trinity, what if I hadn't been there that night? Maybe your life would have been different. But you're the one who chose to keep going. Don't ever forget that." I turned to my teammates, the ones who believed in me despite my painful past. A young programmer whispered, "We're not just building software, Trinity. We're building hope for thousands of kids." The press captured every moment. The next day, the headline read, "From family tragedy to multi-million-dollar CEO, Trinity Harrington launches new education tech for children." I read it with blurred eyes. Not for the money, not for fame, but because I finally saw meaning in the journey. That night, at a small celebration, I sat by the window, moonlight spilling across the floor. Behind me, Rachel, Tara, and my team laughed together. I sipped water quietly, letting peace wash over me. I remembered dear Martinez's words 2 years earlier. "Your future may be in a wheelchair or partly walking, but what matters is how you choose to live." Now I had my answer. I chose to move forward, and I had found true family, not by blood, but in those who stayed when everything else collapsed. I whispered more to myself than anyone else. Some losses are permanent. But even in darkness, new strength can grow. Outside, life roared on, but inside me, for the first time in years, there was a sweet stillness. A new beginning. The stage lights dimmed, the echoes of applause still beating in my chest. The 2-year journey, from that stretcher to these steady crutches, was a path I would never forget. I knew many out there had felt the sting of being dismissed, abandoned by their own family in their weakest moments. If you have ever been there, if your pain was dismissed as exaggeration, share your story. Perhaps your words will become the lifeline for someone lost in the dark. Family life is often more complicated than we think, but what matters is how we rise, and how we choose those truly worthy of being called family. I found mine in Rachel, Tara, and my teammates. And you, who is your true family? If this story made you reflect, leave a comment, hit like, and follow the channel to join me in more real-life stories, where we learn to overcome pain, find strength, and understand that even in our greatest losses, there is always a way to begin again.